It's very important to present clear ideas to people. And I have done an awful lot of study and research. I've been around politics my whole life. I've been involved in running many federal election campaigns. I've worked in member of parliament's offices. So I'm not what you would consider a lightweight that doesn't know what's in store for me. Being told everything that we need to know. I do not believe that a 2% per year is a fair reflection of our financial situation in tax increases. We have a deficit that has soared well over $1 billion under our current administration. If anything, I am a money man. I operate a business, and I understand that if you don't get the money right, nothing else works. Everything falls under this little fella right here. So I believe our deficits are not only financial, but we have a very, very large deficit of leadership at the helm of our city. And I also believe that with the actions taken in the last administration, we have a huge deficit of integrity. And this is something I've learned firsthand in my efforts to stop this shelter, and it brought me face to face with a lot of the political realities and made me decide it's time that we had a strong leader that can work with people and care about communities. 3 things I put squarely on the shoulders of our mayor and our current city council is a lack of accountability. Too much is done in secret. And there's no need for that when you're running a city. The administration is here to serve you, not hide important facts from you. The second part of that is community consultation. This shelter, as an example, was put forth without proper community consultation. It was something that was just announced, it's coming, there's nothing we can do about it. The only answer the mayor had for it is, well, we have to help the homeless. Now there's a general statement that no one would disagree with, and I'm in full agreement with that. But there has been no consultation. The only consultations that took place had to be forced. And part of our planning process, consultation is mandatory. It just doesn't happen. Too many rules get broken. Transparency. We're not involved in the whole process. Nobody's taking responsibility. I think it's time that our city got its act together. I do not believe that our mayor has his act together. I believe that he can't act. He is bound by big interests, party interests, large organizations. He's not free to make the decisions that we need to make Ottawa grow properly. I don't have any such binds to big organizations, and I'll tell you, if I did, I would invite them to partner with me because they have something that the city doesn't have tons of, and it's called cash. The Salvation Army has billions of dollars in assets. They could easily partner with us in ending our reliance on large emergency shelters, and they could help us usher in housing first. And tell you, when we speak about housing first, the timing couldn't be better than now to do it. Federal and provincial funding strategies are in line with it. Everything in Ottawa is set to go. The University of Ottawa, being a renowned world leader on the academic side of Housing First, they have partnered with the Sandy Hill Community Center, and they run a very successful Housing First initiative with 210 homeless people. What is required is to get people out of emergency shelters and get them into housing. You cannot start the rehabilitation process without giving people a home, getting them off the street, stabilizing them, and giving them the supports that they need. So this is a big part of my platform, and it's something that I will deliver to you as your next mayor. Every decision we make will have accountability. The money will be right, and we'll all be proud to take responsibility for what needs to be done. The consultation will be there as part of a template that I'm going to show you. And transparency, we're your servants. And we will always work that way. Nothing should be done in secret. Next slide, please. So here's my little old piggy bank. My platform has different issues in it that lots of people would look at and say, well, that's very left-wing. In fact, it's not too much different than Clyde Doucette's platform. What sets me apart are my leadership capabilities and my experience at getting things done without creating additional bureaucracy and without creating additional expense that we have to go into our piggy bank for. I am very expert at finding creative solutions using resources that we already have in place. I am a steward of your property and my property. I can't go anywhere without taking ownership of everything I see. A case in point would be our successful garage sale fundraiser we had here in this hall a few weeks ago. I was able to put several fundraisers on for SOS Bandy. We're now up to $170,000 collected on our $200,000 mission. They said it couldn't be done. They didn't expect the community to rally. They didn't expect the leadership within our community and with all of our organizations, and I was able to work with Drew Dobson and pull everything together. And I'm very proud to say our $170,000, we did not spend a penny on any of our fundraising efforts. The only money spent, it was about $7,000, and that's public education. We can't get people involved without educating them. And I personally helped deliver over 40,000 flyers to the entire ward in Rideau-Vanier and quite a bit into Rideau-Rockcliffe, the ward next door. So fiscal responsibility is very much the single most important issue in our city. It's our city budget. I look at running a city much like running a home. Everyone in it are family members. I would not set one family member against another. I would not pick one ward over another as your mayor. All our wards need to be protected. All of our wards throughout Ottawa are unique in character. There's no two that are the same. And I believe every councillor is elected to represent their ward. I would not tell one councillor to trade his vote with another to get an agenda that I want to see put through. I would never tell a councillor to compromise the trust that people have put in them and elected them to their ward to be their voice. Community voices are very, very important in a teamwork framework at City Hall, and I intend to see that that will be done. So we need to get our budget in order. If we don't get the money right, nothing else will work. Income is your taxes, spending are our expenses, pretty straightforward. Then we have our debt and interest, which would be our mortgage payment. If you do this equation, you're going to end up with a deficit or a surplus. Let's not mortgage our future. The next part of my platform is building a better Ottawa, and I call it my People First agenda. Every decision will go through a template. Community consultation process. Was it looked after? If not, that's the first agenda of any planning application. Use a community design plans as a basis. These are there for a reason. It's been studied. This is what's right for the community. And time again, they are completely ignored because they don't have legal bearing. I don't want to go through the process to try to make them legal, because sometimes change is necessary and it needs to be allowed for. So if every planning application had to go through a community consultation process first, not after when it's forced to, using the community design plans as a basis. The developer has a reason to change it and the community agrees with it. It's flexible. How are the people affected? One issue in Herringate, Timber Creek development, it's tearing down a lot of our affordable housing units and displacing a lot of people. With a company with the billions of dollars of assets that Timber Creek has, a better solution could have been found at the beginning. If we're going to destroy 1,100 social housing units, let's build them somewhere else. If people will be displaced, let's look after them. And by all means, after that, we could certainly redevelop the area. How is housing affected? People in housing. How are these points addressed in the proposal? And if I receive a proposal from a big developer and I don't have this information up front, they're going to be sent back to redo it. Or at least that would be my invitation, to have an open process so that the communities are involved in the developments that take place there. Stopping urban sprawl. Our city just keeps getting bigger, and so does our infrastructure. I am a mechanic. I am a renovator. We can't afford to maintain the streets, the sewers, the ambulance service. I go on for an hour of what's required as our city footprint gets bigger and bigger. The taxes collected from these enlargements, the development fees do not cover the cost to the city, and that's a big part of our mortgage. Nobody puts that on a balance sheet. Our city's just getting too big, we can't afford to maintain it. And I'm sure that everyone here has probably encountered a pothole or two on the way here. We have to rebuild, put a lot of money into our infrastructure. So by limiting the footprint that our city makes and building within things we've already paid for, sewers, roads, streets. Next slide is increase affordable housing. This would normally be my number one priority along with ending homelessness. We got to get this part solved first. Ottawa has over a 10-year waiting list for affordable housing. That shortage creates many other issues for our city. It definitely has a direct bearing on homelessness. I'd like to build a city that cares. Having enough affordable housing has been ignored for far too long, and I think it's one of the easiest things to solve. It just takes a change in leadership, a change of direction for our city. How do you do affordable housing? Bruce, how are we going to get those 10,000 units we need? Estimates show that as high as 20,000 units are needed for people on the wait list. There's many different facets to this. Designated infill. We have a lot of spots we can build on within the city. We can use our existing residential stock. People have houses for sale, things need repair. A lot of these properties that are on the market can be bought up and used for affordable housing. We can repurpose redundant properties. How many closed down schools do you see? Churches, different buildings that are already built and paid for. A little bit of renovation can make a lot of affordable housing available. We can create a micro-housing industry. When you look at some of the developers in this city, Minto, Claridge Homes, I can go on. There is a lot of money available. We could be a world leader in Ottawa creating an industry constructing micro homes. I've done a lot of research on the subject, and it is something we can do here in Ottawa with resources that are already available. Again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. They're easy to build. They're easy to ship. You can do an awful lot with micro homes, and I think it's time that Ottawa embrace this opportunity. I left the big one out at the very top, inclusionary zoning. Not everybody knows what that means. If someone comes with a proposal to build 500 new homes, the accepted number is 5% of that number. 50 would have to be affordable housing units. You force the developers to include it as they build. I would be bold enough to challenge developers to go to 10%. And I won't do it in a way where I'm forcing them. I'll do it in a way where I'm inviting them to participate in a social good and increase their profits even more. I am a businessman. We can do a lot more with inclusionary zoning. We can also invite public participation. I will name San Diego as one area where if someone is concerned enough about a homeless person, they can have that homeless person move in with them. They may have a granny suite, they may have a basement apartment, they may have a spare room. There is a process where we can get people in a home. Or we can build a micro home and put it right in the backyard. There's lots of different ways to get people into stable housing. This is just a few. And I would also be a tiger in lobbying for more funds from our federal and provincial governments. But I believe one of the biggest priorities for our city, once we have the money straight, and it's there now, we can do a lot more to increase affordable housing without increasing your taxes. We'll actually reduce, we'll get these people off the streets into housing. I don't look at housing as a luxury. I look at it as a social right. We are a first world developed nation. When you walk down the streets, just a couple of blocks from here, you're going to see some third world conditions. And that needs to be addressed. What kind of society are we if we don't care? Ending homelessness. Now this is what got me started, and I'm not going to separate myself from it. I am a humanitarian. People need to be in homes. We need to limit emergency shelters. Ottawa already has enough emergency shelter beds. We do not need to build more. Mr. Watson is suggesting that he's simply moving a shelter within a ward. Vanier itself already has 14 homeless shelters. Our city rules dictate that no ward should have more than 4. We seem to have an overabundance compared to other wards. So if we limit the shelters, and in moving this one, we're not only moving it, we're tripling its size. It's going from 160 beds to 350. The proposal also allows them to add 60 beds to it without asking. So the number 410 comes to mind. It's being disguised as a benefit because it's a community hub. Men with addictions trying to get off will be put right next to men that are addicts. It doesn't mix. Every modern study in the world shows that mixing it does not work. You need a separation. We need to eliminate the clustering and segregation of our homeless population. It's not good for the homeless, and it is destructive to any community. I believe firmly if this gets built, Vanier and the surrounding area will become a giant ghetto. And a ghetto is defined as a place nobody wants to be. I think this is the noblest thing that our city could do. It costs $125,000 per homeless person. We have 7,700 of them, have $1 billion. With Housing First, estimates are as low as $25,000. I'm a realist. I plug in the number 45, and I come up with $350 million. Ending homelessness will not increase your tax level. It will give us a surplus of $650 million in Ottawa. If we continue down this line, the mistake will be too big to reverse, and Vanier's fortune and our prosperity will be lost for the next 100 years. Next slide, please. Keeping our streets safe. Ensure adequate resources to our police force. This is the modern age, folks. We're not a small town anymore. We're a big metropolis. If you talk to anyone on the force, they're going to tell you we need more and more officers. We need more resources. There's international terrorism. We have to be ready for it. Our guns and gangs department needs to be beefed up. Right now, police will not come into a community unless they are summoned by a call. So this is why I want to reintroduce community policing. When the police force was told there's no more increases, costs go up each year, especially in policing, the first thing that got scrapped was community policing. Anybody that lives here in Vanier, certain areas of Somerset Ward, all around the city, crime is now becoming more and more prevalent. The bar is getting lower because we no longer have the patrols that we need. It's time that we got sensible and looked after our streets. So I would definitely be in favor of shifting more resources to our police force. Look what we can save on homelessness. $650 million goes a long way. I also believe that the city needs to partner. My lifetime of community activism is dependent on the fact that we have volunteers in our city. Not everybody needs to be paid. You don't have to create a bureaucracy. There's lots of examples in the world where we have voluntary foot patrols that go out, whether it's a Friday night, Saturday night, walks. We have one in Bandy that takes place. Easy enough to do. That should say foot, not food. Efficient public transit. Don't get me started on the LRT and sinkholes. I think it's the sinkhole of revenue. Our delay, to me, is one of the biggest failures of our current administration at City Hall. We were promised we'd have it in early May.
On time, on budget.
That promise was backed by $1 million a day penalty that the LRT consortium would have to pay if they missed the deadline. What they didn't tell us, there's a get out of jail free right at the bottom of the get out of jail free card at the bottom of the contract. As long as the consortium says we're going to be late, then the penalty no longer applies. Give me a break. What kind of spin is that? Then we were conveniently told it would be November 2nd. My gosh, is there an election on the 22nd? Did Mr. Watson think nobody of quality would run against him? He's not going to fool you this time. And I predicted as soon as I heard it on a radio show that that date was not realistic whatsoever. More political spin, and now they're telling us that it would be possibly 3 months into the new year. And there's no estimate on the cost of this delay. And the cost isn't just to your tax dollars, the cost is to the businesses and the communities that are waiting for this to happen. There's going to be a lot of bankruptcies for that day. Seeing as our biggest project ever in this city has been bungled by poor management, and again, no accountability, no responsibility taken, other than, oops, I guess our oversight person didn't do a great job. You put me in charge of $2.3 billion of your money, I'm going to make sure that every penny is spent properly. I'm not going to sit back and wait for delays. I'm going to be there during the process to make sure they don't happen. The oversight has to be better. This would give me cause for a review of Phase 2. Phase 1 isn't going so great, I don't think. Phase 2 should be reconsidered and redetermine Phase 3. I don't think it's going to the right places. I call it a slow train to nowhere, and it's not on time. Achieving an efficient bus system. What we're trying to do with our transit system is to get people out of cars and onto public transit. That's not happening. It's not convenient for people that live busy lives, multiple agendas with your family. I think we could do a much better job with the bus system that we have already, and we could use some of the transit ways and rails that already exist for our light rail system to make it cheaper, faster. Why choose Canada or Barrhaven? Let's send it to both. Get everybody using public transit and off the roads. It reduces costs in so many other areas. And we're just about to wind up. The next slide, sir. A greener Ottawa. We all hear about this. We all say, what does it mean? Nothing is all white or all black. There is lots of areas in the middle. So protection of our green canopy. There's a lot that we can do to prevent cutting down the trees, clear cutting. Tree sustainability. Cut one, plant one. How hard is that? Cut one, plant two. Include an environmental impact assessment with every building application. It's usually way down on the bottom. It would be up at the top of my template. What does this development do to the environment? How does it make it even more sustainable for our city? That has to be looked at. Every proponent of a greener Ottawa will tell you we need to spend more on public education. Worldwide studies show the more people know, the more they conserve. So it costs a little to get a much bigger bang for our buck. And let's get away from plastic bags in our composting bins. Give me a break. What's that all about? Follow my campaign example. If our videos were working, you would see a video that I made. I am running one of the world's only truly green campaigns. Nothing from my campaign will go into landfill. No plastic signs. No glossy brochures that we have to cut down trees for. No pamphlets. It's a totally green campaign, something that all election experts say, Bruce, don't do it. It doesn't work. I'm here to tell you it does work. I'm not going to cut down a tree just so you can see my name and win a popularity contest. I don't need to destroy our environment to ask you to vote for me. Go to my website, www.brucemcconville.for-mayor. You see it all. Just as archaic mega shelters from the 19th century are no longer applicable to today's problems, so is spending and putting out lots of election signs, brochures in today's modern age. We're the 21st century, folks. Let's start using it. You can do everything on the internet and save. And I would use this same ideal that I have in my campaign in every decision that I make for you as your elected mayor. the same process goes through. It starts with leadership. If I can do it, so can everybody else. Next slide, sir. I think we're right at the end of it. Donating to my campaign. Well, this is a different kind of green. Every election campaign does cost money, and I'm out here in front of you asking that if you support what I do, go to my website first. I think you'll see a lot of interesting stories there that will tell you what a different kind of leader I am. And I believe I'm the kind of leader everybody hopes for. If only somebody could come along that had the smarts, that had the experience to lead this city. If somebody wasn't attached to big interests and could listen to our communities and create a team effort at City Hall rather than forcing people against each other, the administration against the staff. We have a wonderful staff in our city. Let's start celebrating and using their talents instead of telling them, you have to do this, we need the decision to be that. Mega shelter, case in point. Anybody that studies homelessness knows large shelters are bad, 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 bad. Bad for the homeless, bad for the community, bad for the city, and very, very bad for Ottawa's reputation on the global scene. We can do a lot better. So to donate to my campaign, you can click right onto my website. You've already been there for the petition. There's a donate button. The rest is explanatory, self-explanatory. And we have some folks sitting by in the next room that will be happy to help you through the process. If you're like me and would rather write a check, we can do that as well. We're all set up in the next room. And I think that is the end of my platform. And we have a look at the next slide if there's one. Say two. One thing that I would also like to celebrate, if Christine is still with us, she's back here. If everybody remembers, a few years ago in Ottawa, there was a contest. We're going back quite a few years when Christine and I both had black hair. This gray guy is working. Christine is the author, writer of the Ottawa song. She won a contest about 1982. And once I'm elected mayor, I intend to revive this song and get it out there rather than keep it in a closet somewhere. So let's hear it for Christine McCann and the Ottawa song.